that don't know, I had a tragedy that happened, actually 2 tragedies that happened on the same week last year. I can't remember exactly the date. I think it was September, October. I think it was October. Tuesday of that week, usually at 9 o'clock my time, I usually take out my dog, which was a Husky, and I played with him before for an hour in our property, and he was perfect, fine, happy, doing everything dogs do. And 9 o'clock rolls around, and I want to take him out to the walk, so we start walking. I walk around. We have this like city park that you can walk around. It's like probably 2 blocks or so around the whole thing, and so I would circle that like 6 times, and for my health reasons, right? And he was always with me, and all of a sudden I see him walking, and he's like almost like he's drunk, and he's kind of going back and forth like this. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And all of a sudden he collapsed. I'm like, Balto, what's going on? Come on. And he shakes it off and gets back up on his feet and walks another probably 100 yards and then collapses again. Dude, what's going on? And then basically crying as a man, but it was so horrible. So then all of a sudden I see him foaming at the mouth. I'm like, are you kidding me? What is going on? What is going on? What's going on? Praying God, don't let anything happen to him. But unfortunately, I showed the video to my brother-in-law. He rushed over here and we picked him up, rushed over my wife and son. Couldn't do anything, he just picked him up and put him in the truck. Went to the veterinarian, but because it was late, all the veterinarians that we usually go there close to us were closed, so we had to go further out into the city. And by the time we got there, he was dead. And we found out he had a heart attack, and that is very rare for any dog to have, but for some reason he did. It totally blew my mind because I really loved him. He was a purebred Husky. We got him from a friend of ours, actually my wife's friend, who was a friend in high school, actually said that they had a Husky available, so we're like, yeah, let's get it. We got a good deal on him. He's no longer with us. He's out in doggy heaven. If dogs do go to heaven, I sure hope they do. But it was pretty devastating. Did not like it at all, but it was what it was, and we just basically said goodbye to him. I didn't like burying him. That was the worst. So if you guys have had a dog and died, you know how devastating that can be. I had other dogs that obviously died, and this one was just more of a shock because according to what I read, you don't have dogs dying out of heart attack. Now, luckily I have another Husky, but he's mixed. Yeah, dogs are fun. I mean, I grew up with a dog. I had a smaller breed when I grew up called a Spitz. They actually come out of Japan. I think Bushido would like that. But he was a very small white dog, and he lived for at least 13 years. And we found him with a bloated stomach. And then the other dogs that I had was when I moved into St. Paul, Minnesota. We had 2 of them. My wife really liked Shar-Peis, so we were able to find a good deal on a Shar-Pei, and it came with a brother, but that brother wasn't a Shar-Pei. We had them in our yard. I think it was after church or something. We came there and we couldn't find them, and we had a high fence, so there's no way they could, jump out or dig under in anything. We noticed that the gate was opened and kind of destroyed from the back end, so somebody stole them, and that's the only dog stories I have. But it's sad when you lose any kind of pet. My name is Preston. I'm Warrior of Light. I started out streaming almost 5 years ago now. I had no idea what streaming was about. I mean, I didn't even know what Twitch was about, to be honest with you. How I got into it all was my son was watching somebody on Twitch, and I went into his room and I said, "What are you watching? You're watching somebody playing a video game?" He goes, "Yeah, it's Twitch. You should, watch it." And I'm like, okay. So I watched it with him, and this guy, unfortunately, was swearing up a storm, saying that sex was okay before marriage, saying drugs can experiment, all this stuff. And I'm like, son, no, we're not going to do this. He says, "Dad, it's not bad." I go, "Yes, it is. It's very bad. I don't want you to be in it." All of a sudden, in my head popped, if there are these people out here that are teaching kids and other people, adults, there must be Christians out there. And I did some research, and I found out there were. And it was funny because at the time, a friend of mine back in Minnesota, we were going to start a business, and it was going to be kind of a unique business idea where we actually created a VR community for Christians, but obviously we'd have it open for believers and non-believers alike. And it was a city that you could explore. You could own a place and buy a car and go to work, and there was a lot of cool things that were forming. The guy that was my friend, he is brilliant in programming, so we had this whole plan of action of how to build a Christian VR community. It didn't work out, unfortunately, but what it did is it led me to look at Christian streamers. So I went and I searched out Christian streamers on Twitch. I think I Googled them. I found Pastor Dutzen, I found Eagle Garrett, and some other ones, and I'm like, wow, they are Christian, they're talking about Christ, they're still playing a video game, they have viewers, this is interesting. So I decided to interview them, and I did, and we had good conversations with them, and asked them, why did you start streaming, what was the purpose of it, how much does it cost to stream, all these other things, and I got into it, and then I decided, well, you know what, maybe I should become a streamer. So that's what I basically did. 13 years old, I accepted Christ. I don't know the exact date, but I think it was in the fall time, because there was a church house, or a house that was made into a church, a really big house that was made into a church, and they invited everybody in the neighborhood to be part of it. My mom at the time was looking for a church. My father never went to church, so we went this one evening, and it was pretty interesting because it was weird for me to be part of like a community, if you will, and you had all the parents bring their kids, and the parents would go into the main room, and then all the kids got shuffled up to the top room. I didn't know anybody. We were neighbors, but we didn't really hang out together. So, and it was a big neighborhood. It was actually a neighborhood across from our neighborhood. So I don't know how we got that flyer to go there, but when we arrived, obviously there was a guy who was talking about Jesus, and then I know Jesus because my mom was a Christian. She read the Bible all the time. She, prayed all the time. I followed her example, but I never really accepted Christ until I went to this thing, because number one, I saw kids my age accepting Christ, and number two, I basically got the hell scared out of me because he did fire and brimstone type of preaching. So I was scared to go to hell. I was really scared to go to hell. I'm like, no, I do not want to go to hell. Whatever I do not want to go to hell. At that moment, obviously, I accepted Christ, and a lot of things changed in me. I wasn't as angry as I was before. I wasn't a bad kid, but I did have that as a challenge, and I still do to this day, unfortunately. But it was extreme, temper tantrum type of stuff. I don't know if I had ADD, or I never got tested, so it's possible. Everybody says your mind is working a million miles per hour, and I go, yeah, it's probably because I have that. But I never tested for it, never got on Ritalin or any of the drugs that they give you nowadays. But anyways, I didn't really get into like a relationship with Christ until 1985, I believe it was. There was a conference in Washington, D.C. called Youth Congress 85. I went, and I was absolutely shocked. Before, I went to another event called Rocky Mountain Getaway. It was actually sponsored by Student Venture, and it was a high school ministry of Campus Crusade for Christ, which I guess now is called Crew. But anyways, they invited me. I went. I raised the money. I actually took my brother too. The Washington, D.C. one was different because I was in the nation's capital, and I don't know how many kids were there. Probably 20,000 kids at this conference, and it totally changed my life. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to live for Christ. And I think I was 15 at the time, and then I went back to high school. A couple of my friends were passionate about creating a Bible study inside of the school, and we had a lot of flack because a lot of people said, no, you can't do that. No, that's not allowed. It's, church versus state. Can't have church inside of a state organization like a school. And we fought it. Even before the internet, we found some rulings, and I can't remember what the verse was. Something verse something. I think it was white verse something. And they indicated that we could have Bible study. And why that was so important is because the principal of the school said, well, legally now you can have it. You fought me. You won. However, because of this fact, I'm going to put together a gathering as well. I said, well, that's fine. That's great. I thought, great. We'll have 2 Christian events at the school. And it wasn't that way. He was a Satanist. So he basically formed a Satanist group that met in the afternoons. We met in the mornings. I think we met only once a week, and I think they met more than once a week. But, there was a lot of conflict back and forth. A lot of people were saying, well, why are Satanists, out here? And, well, I can't stop them. They can assemble too, just like us. So let's just leave them be. And a lot of them actually came into the Bible study, and at least 3 people that I know to this day are Christians now and good friends of mine because of the fact that we did something that most people didn't think of or didn't want to think of. So that was kind of cool to see that. But God has been moving in my life on that. I did a lot of networking, a networking thing called BNI, and it's like a Business Network International where I was part of, and I liked it, but it was too structured for me. And so I said, no, I don't like this, and I got involved with another networking group. I became the president of it, basically one person to, I think we had 50 at the time, and that was really working out well. But then I'm noticing that the people that are coming in, they're Christian, and I'm thinking, I wonder if I could have a Christian-based networking group. So we created a Christian group called Seekers First. I worked with my church, and I said, I noticed that we don't have a business directory. Can we make a business directory? And that was when it was really hard to make business directories, whatever tools we had back then. But we made a business directory, so we found out, those that own businesses could be in this directory in our church, and we handed it out so people could obviously go to us as opposed to somebody else who doesn't believe. And it grew our businesses, so it was real cool. I had guest speakers coming in once a month, talked about, like authors or other individuals. So I did that for a while, and then moved to a third world country where my wife was from. Well, actually, before that, I actually had formed a Christian networking group too. We basically met all the time. So we had the Christian networking group, and then we had the Christian networking group with events. So I have been pretty much taking, and I think maybe this is God's gift for me, taking things from the world and turning it into Christians. So the same thing happened with me when I was streaming, right? I saw a lot of people streaming, a lot that weren't Christian, and of course I was following those that were Christian. I saw something in Facebook, and I noticed that they were Christian gamers, and I'm like, okay, well, we're gamers that happen to be Christians, so it shouldn't be that big of a surprise. But he formed a group on Facebook, so I joined, and I started talking to him, and I actually, if Jelly's still here, she knows the story. I said, man, I should really talk to him, and maybe we should get involved, and we did. I learned a lot from him. I had met a guy from, I don't know if it was Portugal. I don't think it's Portugal, but he was a really cool singer, and he was streaming on Twitch. I started talking to him, and we found out that he was part of another organization, kind of like what Indy, was part of, where they basically have a whole bunch of people that are trying to become an affiliate. And I looked at it, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I should join. But then it's like the Spirit convicted me and says no. And the reason is because you can bring in people that don't believe and don't have any knowledge of Christ or God or anything. The problem is you got to raid out to another person that, you can show their love, but there's a challenge with the people that are watching. They're, not going to be edify Christ. They're not going to edify anything in their lives. It will be the same thing that my son was watching. And so I decided not to. But I asked a lot of questions, and I asked, and prayed about it, and I'm saying, why can't we have something like that for Christians? What happened in the course of 9 months, basically, I became an affiliate, actually on this date, I think it is. This is my streamversary, I think it is. Not only for Blessing Boat, but for me. Actually, I think it's mine now, because I went affiliate 4 years ago, and then I launched Blessing Boat 2 weeks later. And we were just, trying to average like 3 viewers per hour. And for those that don't know what Blessing Boat is, we basically start out on Blessing Boat. We did it differently back then, but we started out, had a streamer for an hour, 55 minutes or so, and then we would raid the next person in line. Now we're going back to Blessing Boat because we want to obviously give information of the sponsors that we work with and other people that are part of the organization that are helping us, doing shout outs, doing videos and stuff like that, and then we go back to the next person in line. So it's kind of like a raid train all day long. So if you're new here, thank you for being here. That's what we've been doing for 4 years, almost every month. If you are a streamer and you are not an affiliate, please free to go to blessingboat.com and learn more, you can join, put up the application. Our first priority is obviously helping the non-affiliates become affiliate, and so if you are not affiliate, please let us know so we put you on the schedule first. We'll give you the time and dates that are available. And we vet you, we ask you some questions, so make sure that you're not going to take over the stream and do something that you shouldn't be doing. We want to make sure that you're Christian. We want to make sure that you are not going to swear on stream, or even the games that you play, make sure they're family friendly. So in any case, that's kind of my story. That's how I got started in this whole idea of Blessing Boat.